Going to take a deep dive into the video game sector now. Let's bring in our panel. Brett Sifling, Director of Get Invested, Gerber Kawasaki Wealth Management, Doug Astrop, Managing Partner, Exponential Investment Partners. Hope I got both of your names right, Brett and Doug. So good to have you both. Brett, let's start with you. Video game stocks, a major investment theme of yours, but you've been scaling back a little bit, lowering your exposure to them. Is that because people are finally leaving their homes and no longer on their consoles, or what?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, as we enter this new normal, getting out of the coronavirus pandemic, we have lowered our allocation to video game sector. We think that these companies are going to be facing pretty difficult comps because everyone's not just staying at home. So we're focusing on more quality names, got out of more of the speculative studios that we have been investing in, and ultimately we do think that it's long-term great investment theme, but right now that's just a little bit volatile during these times.
Doug, what's your growth outlook for this space?
Well, it seems to be growing at about 10% a year pretty consistently, and has good long-term prospects, especially with the metaverse coming into focus, which, you know, we don't really know where that's going to lead, but it's certainly an exciting thing to think about and dream about, you could say. But we don't disagree with what Brett said. I mean, I don't think you want to load up on game companies necessarily, and but there's definitely some names that have exposure to the space that are really attractive. Specifically, Microsoft. You know, you're getting a lot of gaming exposure with that name, but you're also getting exposure to the cloud with the Azure business. So that's a way to play it where you're not overloading up on gaming, because it's a niche industry that, you know, you don't necessarily need an outsized allocation to it, but it's probably something you should have some exposure to, given the future prospects and the metaverse and the growth rate.
It's interesting. I was going to bring up Microsoft because, Brett, it's also one of your top picks. And obviously, we've seen a lot of M&A activity in this space, the biggest, of course, being Microsoft's bid for Activision Blizzard for $68.7 billion. How much of your bullishness, Brett, is based on that deal going through? Because when I look at Activision, I would think it should be trading near the offer price of $95 a share, and it still isn't. It's trading at $78.79 right now. So how much of your bullishness is linked to that Activision deal, Brett?
Yeah, it does seem like there's been a lot of M&A activity, whether it's Sony going after Bungie, whether it's Take-Two going after Zynga for their mobile games, and then obviously the big elephant in the room, which is Microsoft and Activision. I'm really excited to see if Microsoft can, one, fix the culture issues that were happening at Activision. It was obviously some terrible things that were going on there, but they have a lot of talent. And where I see this fitting into the Microsoft suite is really their Game Pass. Their Xbox Game Pass has grown to about 25 million subscribers. And so Activision has some great titles that they can add into that. And investors love subscription-based models compared to the old way of video games, which was a very volatile way of selling just single titles, and you didn't really know how well that they were going to do. So I think it fits in perfectly for that. And I think the market is discounting it a bit too much. And ultimately, I do think that the deal will go through.
All right, so Brett, you also like Unity. Doug, going back to you, in addition to Microsoft, you like Roblox, which is down in a big way this year, down 55%. So I guess good buying opportunity there, but also Wynn. And your reasoning is because of its direct exposure to Macau. So my question then is, how does China's zero COVID tolerance policy and uptick in COVID cases and renewed lockdowns play into that decision?
Well, yeah, Wynn is definitely a longer term play because, as you mentioned, things are going to be rocky in the near term with the lockdowns over there. But if you just look at the longer term potential, they're getting this 10-year renewal on their license, one of only 6 licenses that are available in Macau. And that's a huge sort of quasi-monopoly, if you will. I mean, it's a oligopoly, I guess. So that's a huge competitive advantage they have over there, and incredible real estate that can't be replicated. There's only so many competitors that can come in, and it's 73% or so of their earnings come from Macau. So you're really getting very pure Macau exposure, which most people would find to be a great diversifier for a portfolio. And again, it's a longer term bet on Macau and China. In the near term, probably going to be volatile for a while until they get through their latest bout with COVID. But longer term, we think the crowds will return and they'll do quite well. And stock's down 43% from its high. So a lot of upside there. And Roblox is a similar story in that it's been obliterated. I mean, it's down, lost 2/3 of its value. So there's not a whole lot of downside left. And we think longer term, they're building a great ecosystem with a very dedicated user base. And they're going to have lots of opportunities to monetize that base. They've been successful in going a little bit older with their users recently. And they're showing good growth in January, even though the end of the year was a little disappointing. It looks like the trends are picking back up for them. So we just think that's been oversold. And as a speculative name, you could really potentially have a good winner there longer term.
At a big discount if you think that they're nearing a bottom right now. Brett, you're predicting a rise of a mainstream play-to-earn video game built on blockchain. Is this a bet on Ethereum or another crypto? Explain this to me.
Yeah, so we do look at digital infrastructure, right? Who's actually putting together these games? Companies like Unity on the public markets are a lot easier to, invest in realistically than a lot of these blockchain companies. But I've gone to these hacker houses across LA, these NFT conferences, and it's really interesting to hear that the #1 theme that these developers are working on is some type of play to earn game, whether it's on Solana, Ethereum, or a different, more speculative blockchain. Right now, it's so early to tell who's going to be the big winner, but I do think that there's going to be some type of cultural phenomenon similar to like a Fortnite that we've had in recent past, where this is really going to go from an idea to a mainstream way of life. And eventually, these in-game items will be owned by the players. They won't be owned by these corporations. And ultimately, that relationship is eventually going to change. And it's going to be interesting to see how the rest of the ecosystem interacts with it and who are going to be the big winners over time.
Doug, meanwhile, you say the legalization of gambling in the U.S. has added another growth engine for the industry. Is that benefiting casinos or actually video game makers? How does that work?
Well, it seems to be more casinos and then upstart online gambling companies. The video game companies seem to have kind of stayed away from this area for now, maybe because it's there's a bit of a line there between sort of gaming for fun and gambling for money. It's kind of really been considered two distinct activities. But we think that there again, Wynn has a great advantage there with their Wynn Bet. And they've gotten an early jump on getting into that. And they have a great brand and great customer loyalty. And so we think they'll do well in that space, and that's a whole nother engine for their growth that's not really priced in at all right now. So we think that'll be a great driver of future profits.
It's probably a good thing that people who play video games aren't doing it betting money, that they're not hand in hand. That was my question, because the people who I know that do play for so many hours that there's the potential to lose a lot of money. Brett, I'll leave you with the final word, just in terms of what investors should consider when they're getting into this space.
Yeah, we'll, leave you guys with a word of caution because the tech market is very, very volatile right now. There's a ton that's going on in the industry, specifically in video games, that's very speculative. So, stick to the more proven names, and over time, you're going to be okay.
Many thanks to Brett Sifling, Gerber Kawasaki Wealth Investment Management, and Doug Astrop, Exponential Investment Partners. Appreciate your insights. Thanks so much.